Well, how about we kick this rodeo off and get her going?
Cool.
So welcome everyone. This is going to be a little bit different of an Elmer. We've got some hardware on display, solar panels, batteries, and the like, going from nice and small and compact like the smart guy does to the dumb guy with the RV who goes monster big on everything. So we've got those. And what we thought we might do would be to just kind of go around and talk about our different experiences with the solar and the auxiliary power and you know, a little Q&A and roundtable kind of stuff. So I'm Tom, WA7TBP, your El Presidente for another term. And we're going to start right over there with Howard and work our way around this way, and everybody will introduce themselves. Name, rank, serial number, and how much money you're donating to the President's Retirement Fund.
This will be my 2 cents. Most of you know me, Howard Marin, WA1HE. I have no solar experience, so that's what I want to get into. So I'm here to learn.
Konstantin, KK7GCN, mostly like sensor things and attempts to use solar panels as sensors. Nothing linked to like power-related applications.
Ben Brzezinski, AD7JI. My backup power consists of my generator that I just drag out of the garage when the power goes out.
I'm Anne Marshall, RJ7's GHW, and I'm Peter's wife. And we have a generator, and we have some small generators and some small solar panels, but we really haven't had to use them.
And I'm Peter, Kilo Juliet 7 Gulf Hotel Whiskey, and I don't know anything about solar or how to use it with the radios, so I want to learn.
That's why we're here. Roland, K7RWB. My solar experience is very limited, very small. Just for setup for soda and stuff like that to keep my lithium batteries charged. And I'll tell you about what we use up at Elk Camp when my turn comes. It's pretty amazing.
Colin, do you want to go next?
Oh, sure.
Just in time.
I appreciate the call.
There you go. There you go.
So I'm Colin, Whiskey 2, Charlie Oscar Lima. I say my solar experience amounts to like the little solar panels on calculators. I've certainly done reading on them, and I have some knowledge from reading and that sort of thing, but no practical experience. I just haven't, not something I've ever investigated or looked into in any meaningful way.
Yeah, I'm Colin, Kilo 7, Oscar Mike November, and I forgot about those little solar panels on the calculators. That's probably the most I've ever done with solar.
Hi, I'm Kurt Thompson. I'm fairly new here. This is only my second time here. Kind of new to HF stuff, fairly recently, but my career has been in radio stuff from several companies I've worked for. My solar experience, I have an experimental airplane that I built, and it's a short takeoff and landing airplane, and I kind of land in remote spots, and I have a fold-out antenna that I basically use it to charge my cell phone or my GoPro cameras and things, but that's kind of my experience to solar stuff.
I'm Ian, N7BIY, and I'm normally more active with the North Bend Aries team, but I like to get up here once in a while when I'm able, and I'm very interested in the solar. We've got whole house solar, but I'm not very familiar with the personal solar for devices, so that's what I'm looking at.
I'm Kurt, K7KDW, the man behind the curtain. Just allergic to the camera. Solar experience, I don't really have any other than those little lights in front of your house that suck.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like those.
Don't last
That's
that long.
my experience, as I hate them.
Well, again, welcome
Well, so
everyone.
guys up there.
Yeah, but welcome everybody here in the gallery. Now we've got some very suspicious looking characters on screen there. Let's start with Ralph.
Let me unmute. I'm Ralph, Kilo Charlie 7, Quebec X-ray Delta, and I am in Marana, Arizona, and think Tucson. I'm not a solar user. I have been using batteries for doing parks on the air. So I do have questions for the group about some LiPo batteries. And I have a question for Roland. I know, Roland, you've got a electronic battery booster. And if you could let me know which one you have, because my AGM battery just isn't holding up for doing parks on the air.
I'll get back to you because I don't remember the brand.
Well, that's fine. And also I'm looking at it, like I said, interested in who's using what brand of batteries and the amperage ratings that are on those batteries.
All right, Bob.
I've had a limited amount of experience with the solar. It really revolved around a couple of little power boxes that I built and wanted to have the ability to power them with solar. So I hooked them up and used the solar panel. It's just a 50-watt solar panel that hooks directly into the power box, but it seemed to charge the batteries. Didn't take too long to do it, but if you're using a lot of power, it's quite a bit. So that, and then I recently I bought a battery system more for a backup for the house in case the power goes out. And I can't remember the rating on it, but I think it's 4 kilowatts and 4 kilowatts. Which should take care of me for a day or so on limited power, but then with a gas generator that would hook up to recharge it as needed. So it turns out that the batteries that I bought came along with some solar panels, which could be used to recharge the battery as opposed to the gas powered generator. But I haven't gotten into that. I haven't even unpacked the solar panels, but they're in the attic right now. But could if we approached a time where they could be used effectively with the sunshine we have. So that's it for me.
Interesting. Very good. And Ken.
Hello, all. Ken here, Whiskey 7 Echo Charlie Kilo. Yeah, I've dabbled in some solar, mainly at work, because they wanted lights in the chicken coops during the winter on a timer. And one thing I found is what you really want is a charge controller. But it's only semi-effective solar in the winter around here. It's so gray and dark. You all see it, just open up your eyes. Otherwise, I've dabbled in it. But at home, a generator is really a necessity. I'm sure most of you are all on public water systems and maybe gas hot water tanks. I have a well. Water has to come out of the ground as 3/4 horse pump, and then if you want heat, I can switch the heat pump off and turn the furnace to back to propane because I don't have natural gas also, and that's enough to run it. So it's a 5,000 watt continuous or 5,500 with a 6280 surge. But that keeps all the lights on the refrigerator and everything else. And I've made some adapters for small lead acid batteries in case it's not cold, with an adapter that I can plug right into the router and power up the routers. So then you have internet. So you can go that route too. So yeah, trying to run my house on solar and get water. That's unless you have a huge battery bank and you want to use the expense to maintain it. A generator is far cheaper with 5 gallons of fuel and a few extra cans. So it depends on your situation, on where you live. I suppose for what you're trying to accomplish either. Also, for me, a shower in the morning is a necessity. So get up in the morning, fire up the generator, turn on the lights, and get the well up to pressure and take a shower. And then I can function.
Totally get that. Well, again, it sounds like we've got, kind of a thumbnail sketch approach to our solar from everybody here. So I'll go ahead and start this merry-go-round here and start it over here. This guy here, this panel is made by Zamp Solar, very highly respected in the solar industry. And this is my general go-to charge up my car batteries, help me out on my RVs, because my RVs have side plugs to put on additional panels. The RVs already have solar panels, but this is out there in case we need it. This guy here is a bioenno oriented solar panel, which couples with that black box right there. And somebody was asking about this, so I'm just gonna let you guys open this up and take a look. And this has got a 50 amp bioenno battery in it, which is lithium ion. And that box is available from PowerWorks and several other companies. And you can charge the battery, obviously, with this. There's also an AC charger that I have out here. This guy right here is mated to this. If any of you have ever seen the Patriot Power ads on the internet, this I found at a garage sale. The lady had no idea what it was. She said, it's broken, it doesn't work. And I says, well, what do you mean it doesn't work? She says, well, I turn the switches on and nothing happens. So I said, well, that's because you probably didn't use the key in the back to turn it on. So I turned it on for her. Well, lo and behold, the battery. So she says, I want it gone. What do you give me for it? $20. Yours. Take it. Gone. So every once in a while, you score at a garage sale. And this is the bioenno, or this guy, the charge controller for this guy. It's very smart and it works quite well, and it will select different style of battery. Somebody here said something about the charge controller, and the biggest mistake that I've been hearing about being made by a lot of the hams that use the solar stuff is having the wrong charge controller setting for the battery they're using. For example, lithium ion batteries are very snooty about what they like. And if you charge a lithium ion according to like an AGM or just a good old fashioned flooded cell, the lithium ions don't like it. They will charge up, but you will not get the maximum length out of that particular battery. So whatever system you choose, make sure that the system that you have, the charge controller, this guy, will properly charge the types of batteries that you have to use. And most of the new ones now, you can run through a menu of a flooded cell, AGM, lithium ion. There's some other styles. Is it calcium chloride type battery? Is that right?
Could be.
And some other ones. But just make sure that the key to success for keeping these guys charged is the proper solar panel and or the proper AC. And then the absolute must is have a good controller that's going to do everything you want to. We had field day up at the Duval Ball Fields 5 years ago, Roland.
Mm-hmm.
And we operated all weekend long. And with this stuff right here, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to fire off the generator in my camper unit at all. Everything worked here just fine, all during the night and everything. This works for me. Obviously not really good for soda, POTA, and those things where you want light and easy. It's all oriented towards an RV. So that's a thumbnail sketch of WA7 TVP solar stuff. And my house has an automatic start generator that will power everything except the dryer and the stove. Yes.
Have you heard about Goal Zero? Any idea on that? Because that's what we have. I have a Goal Zero 400 and a Goal Zero Sherpa. It weighs, the one battery we have weighs about that much there. And I mean, it easily can run through the night, can run on his CPAP machine.
Zero.
Yeah, a Goal Zero, right. And I'm just wondering what you've heard or thought about Goal Zero?
Unfortunately, first I've heard of it.
Okay.
So anyway, any other questions on WA7 TVP's menagerie here? And I'll have Roland, because he's got a little display here as well. Yes, sir.
I've been told that on a solar panel, you want to make sure that your part of your solar panel isn't in the shade, that
Yeah.
it adversely affects it. It isn't like, oh, okay, I'm only going to get half power out because it's half covered with sunlight. It actually,
Yeah, what was explained to me, Kurt, was if this part of my panel is covered, the charging, all the interconnects here are going to fight with each other, and you're not going to get the desired current flow. So that was what was explained to me. So, but that it's going to happen no matter how hard you try. It's going to happen. So yeah. And Roland found a real nice door price for us for one of our meetings. And do you have that with you, Roland? A little solar panel for the charger or the phone charger?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's my version of it.
that's there's a lot of those little things around, and they work really good. If any of you folks are aware of it, is it Nebo flashlights? I'm a flashlight idiot. I see a new flashlight and I got to try it out. And one of the kits they came with has a little charger in it for the little light here, the pen light, and you can charge your cell phones with it. So the technology is just really has changed a lot. Since even I bought my first panel, a great big one over there, it's really changed a lot. So anyway, that's what you see at my house. So Roland, it's all yours. And I'll be after we're done too, if you have any other questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so what's the wattage on those panels up there?
Okay, the big one, the big Zamp, I believe is 100 watt, 100 watt. The next one in line in the middle is about 75 to 100, and the one on the back there is also 75 to 100.
Okay.
That's and remember, you're talking to an old dude with a memory.
Well, mine used to be as big as his, and I watched it one day and it shrunk.
Thought that was going somewhere else.
Yeah. I just picked this stuff up. I'm building a box similar to what Tom's got, but it's going to be in one of those yellow top storage cases like you see at Lowe's, because that's what, if you remember field day, that's what all my radios are in. So I figured, I want to make them all look the same. So I'm building. I was trying to get it done for tonight. Of course, everything I ordered went on back order. It's normal. And I bought this for it. Now, obviously, it's small to this. It's all black and white. The bigger, the better. That's obvious. This is only 20 watts, but it'll be enough to trickle charge I've got 4 lithium ion batteries in there. They're 6 amps a piece. They're going to be set up parallel, so I'll have 26 amps out. And this is more of an experimental thing. This was only $39. It was $75. And on Christmas special, it came with the controller, the panel, stuff for if you wanted to hook it up to a battery, and whatever else into another battery. So I thought for that cheap, I could go ahead and I got that off of Amazon because I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money until I understood how it works, how it goes, and everything like that. And so this is kind of my little system. Now I was hoping Sean was going to be here tonight because Sean's got the depth of knowledge of how all these, because it's a difference on the make and how these are made, what the formula. There's good, bad, and ugly. I don't know where this fits in, but for $39, I don't imagine it's the top of the fleet line, but I wanted to play it. The next size down, I got this one time by accident. I went down to Puyallup at the swap meet, and I bought a bag to carry my radios in. This thing was inside of it. And it's just a little, that's the one you guys were familiar with, made by Goal Zero. They've been around for years. They got some pretty amazing little products. And it just takes there and folds up, locks into place. This goes in the back of it. You get that charged up and recharge your cell phone. So it's definitely not going to charge a car battery. I'll guarantee you that. But I didn't care. It was free. This is a $75 or $85 part, and I got the bag for $10. So I came out smelling like a rose. This is my little guy. These were issued to us at the Red Cross because when you're deployed and you're out someplace doing something and your phone starts to go south, that you got to have these things charged up. And in fact, it's charging right now, even in this light. I don't know if you can see the lights blinking there, but it works really good. I just leave it on the windowsill, keep it charged, and then I don't work with the Red Cross anymore, but we'd be in places there was nothing. We go in after the tornadoes hit, after the hurricanes hit, there's no power at all, other than the headquarters buildings. So we would pack these with us and just at night, stick them in and charge our phones up. And it worked really good, then leave them out there in the day because it was nasty back there. It was 104 degrees with 89% humidity. So we had no problem having sun. I think I lost 15 pounds in about 4 days from sweating. What I was going to tell you about, excuse my back, what I was going to tell you about camp was kind of neat. We've got, for you guys, remember Big Brian? I don't know if you were any of you were here.
Everybody here does.
Yeah, big dude. Brian's about 6'5", 320. He's a big dude, sweetest, kindest, smartest man I've ever meet. If you ever talk to him, you'd think he did. Nothing between his ears until he starts to talk, and then all of a sudden your respect changes instantly. He built a system on his own, similar to what Tom's got, quite a bit bigger. Brought it up to camp with 200-watt cells, and we all looked at him and said, well, what are you going to do with that? And we haven't started a generator in 3 years. It powers everything. We have a big tent, big wall tent. We changed all the LED lights. Our lights on the outside, where we shine down onto our fire pit when we cook meals out there, is an equivalent to a 500-watt halogen bulb, and it doesn't even take anything. It's all LED. You turn it on, and the little display goes, huh? It doesn't even 0.2 watt. It's just great. So we can turn that on. If you left it on for hours, you'd be in trouble. But that lights the whole area up. And all we do is, we don't have any automatic sun followers. This is the automatic sun follower. So you look outside, you see where the shadows just, damn it. Then you go wipe the snow off, because we always have snow up there, because we're in there in October, November. And the damn thing stays up at 13.5 all the time. It charges our cell phones, it runs all our lights. We don't have any generator. We don't have that little in the background in the evening. It's so quiet. You can actually hear the elk scream at night and hear the coyotes yell and stuff. And it's really cool. So anyway, I'm kind of copying what he did, but not with this expensive a battery. He built every single cells. He built everything from scratch. Built the whole system up in a box about like this. And that's just the kind of guy he's at. It does everything. And when it's heavy, it's probably 50 pounds.
So just for perspective, when you're up there, I know you run pretty lightweight, so you're not running a fridge, you're not running things that way. You're just basically, it's lighting.
You need a fridge up there.
I see your trailer.
Fridge is just outside the door. You see my trailer.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
My trailer that I take up there is just 4 bunk beds.
Yeah.
There is nothing else in there except LED lights.
So that's why I wanted to, just for context of folks, like where you're up there.
We're up there. It's an elk hunting camp. I haven't hunted in 10 years, don't want to. I just go camping. I just love getting out there with my son and stuff and go camping, but he still hunts, and that's cool. But there's not a big drain on it, to be honest with you, because we don't have anything up there. It's all wood fire. We have a wood rig stove inside and everything like that. So we got all the comfort of homes up there, but it's basically nothing. And now with solar, we're spoiled rotten. It's just unbelievable. So that's why I say I wish Sean was here, because he could explain to you the different makeup of the panels, what's more efficient and what's not. There's a wonderful, in fact, we had it on here about 6 months ago. Remember that, what's the name of that outfit that does all the videos?
Oh.
Is it Pack Rat?
Yeah.
Pack Rat.
That's it.
Yeah. We had a Pack Rat guy when they were doing it, some health deal they were doing, some big deal, and he explained in detail, almost too detailed, but on how each one of these are made up and what's more efficient. And if you ever want to find that out, go to the Pack Rats. Just go Pack Rat, and it's spelled weird. Patrak.
I don't know.
Yeah, packrat.com and go amateur radio videos, and there's got to be 500 videos on there about anything you ever wanted to know about ham radio and anything that has anything to do with radio and this sort of stuff. And they're there for free to listen to. And I'll be using them once in a while when we can't get speakers. So that's any questions for me? That's kind of my, and of course I've had that calculator too with the solar. We've all got those guys.
Just to clarify, PACRAT is PAC and then RAN.
Okay.
PAC.
PAC. Yeah, very, very, very good site. And like I said, hundreds of videos on there, and you can, they're all on YouTube.
Yeah.
Too. And there's links to them. The way I've downloaded them and watch them when I'm up in the mountains or something like that. So
Good show.
that's about all I got. Any questions from the peanut gallery? You guys probably got, no, Ken, you got more experience than I do in it. So.
One thing that if you do go big like I've done, a lot of times on the back of the panel, you will see the charge controller mounted, and you have to do one of these things to see what the charge current and the voltage is. But this guy right here, if you come back to it, you can just simply lift it up and read the charge controller voltage and amperage, which is a real nice feature because years ago when I was first exposed to somebody else's solar, I had to get down on my hands and knees in the dirt to be able to read his charge controller because it was hard mounted behind the panel. And just a stupid, simple little thing like a piece of metal on a hinge where you can pull it out and look at it makes it very convenient and keeps your knees a lot cleaner. Just one of those life lessons.
And the one thing I found out when I bought that little miniature setup is, as I did more and more research, it's like anything you buy. You buy something small, then you want to, and then you got to get something bigger. Then you want to get something bigger. Then you want to get something bigger. Welcome to the world of hobby. You can't use the same charge controller. They've got specs. I think Tom mentioned that already, from wattage to wattage. And if you go outside of that wattage, you're going to smoke that controller. You put too much wattage into it. So I was thinking, well, I'd go with a little panel, then I'd get a little bit bigger panel, I'd get a little bit bigger panel until I read the information on that. And they said, limitations, limitations. And so when I do eventually get more serious with a larger panel and everything like that, then I have to get a new controller. And I think most of the time they come with one. But, sometimes we don't do the obvious, do we? Let's just smoke it. When it smokes, you screwed up.
One of the rules of thumb that I heard that better than 90% of the time, if the panels are black, like these that I have, and then that one that Roland had, that is more of the upper end of the chemistry for the solar panels. There's a few of them that are white in background. But just as a rule of thumb, if you're, according to my research of some 3 years ago, you are most likely in the upper end of the panels if you have a black panel. Not a guarantee that everyone, but for the most part, 90 percentiles.
Yeah, and I just don't remember the chemistry makeup of what they were. I've read it, but I'm like Tom, trying to remember that stuff, and you don't use it every day.
Yeah, and compared to 10 years ago, the amount of power that these panels have now compared to those 10-year-old panels is night and day different.
Yes.
So much more efficient, much better ability to catch the solar rays and convert it into the photovoltaic current flow. So as we keep moving forward, I'm sure that they're just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, Big Brian that I was talking to about, he put a full system on his house up in Marysville before he moved. He just moved to Idaho here last year, and he's going to be putting one there. But he put it his whole front side. He had a standard Rambler with a roof like this, that whole front, and it was $40,000 to install that system on there. He paid for it in 18 months. It was amazing how much it got paid for. 18 months. It was a 3-year payback, but by the time he saved on pay, then he got up there. The power company, I don't remember who it is, they buy power from him. So surplus power goes back in the line, and basically his meter runs backwards for a non-technical way. But he said he paid for that system in 18 months. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I have a friend in upstate New York. He's sort of in the Rochester, very cloudy, sort of like us, and he's a old hand operator as well. He was experimenting with solar, but he actually has a portable little wind turbine that produces like 200 watts. He could take it with him, and he lives off near a lake, the Lake Ontario, and he gets more out of that than this, especially during the winter. I'm just wondering if anybody here had any.
I just saw a YouTube tonight on an RV guy, or a guy's building a house in Montana off grid, and he has both the solar, but he also has one of the wind turbines, and he went with I believe he referred to it as a helical one. It's not the airplane propeller style. You just stick it up there, and because of the way the blades are, no matter which direction the wind comes, it takes less wind to turn that to generate current. And I'm told that the wind generators are starting to become better at generating power as well. And they like, a lot of these guys that I've been reading about like the helical.
Right. He has one that's, I don't know, it's about this tall, and they're aluminum fins. I don't know what you call them, but they're not rotating fan blades. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
It rotates this way.
And was it Costco had those available 5 or 6 years ago? They had a small version. It was for, cell phones and flashlights and all that kind of stuff, very portable. And it had one of those helical wind catchers. So
I guess that's where ideal would almost be both, because then you have solar during the day while there is sunlight. But if there's no sunlight, you got the wind, and then also the wind is going to go through the night potentially, and depending on how much wind you have. Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey, yeah, I had one comment. Roland mentioned about the guy up by Arlington or Marysville, and yeah, the meter going backwards and stuff. That's one thing, but if you're going to use solar and you're looking for emergency backup, you need batteries to store that energy, and that's where the caveat is. With that is you need that buffer to store that energy in one form or another, whether it's wind or solar, or even if you're running a generator, and those are money and maintenance, and they don't last forever. And then you need inverters, and so I looked into solar just to like try to get to net zero, but by the time that it would pay for itself, then you're almost installing a new system anyways, and you're not like really off the grid. And if the power goes out, then I would be on generator anyway. So that's the one main thing that still's yet to be figured out to make solar or wind viable, is how do you store it when there's no wind and there's no solar energy? And that hasn't come around yet, except for one case that I know that was in the where is it? It's the islands between, it's a Portuguese territory out in the Atlantic, and there was a case study on that where they used the wind to store water in a crater that was all volcanic, and when the wind died, they'd use that gravity water to power up a turbine, gas, or a turbine, just like you would at a hydro plant, and then they had a big backup generator in case all should fail. So yeah, there's case studies. The problem is yeah, the solar technology's come a long way, but the grid is not like a light switch. You need a buffer, and Germany's found that out in a lot of ways too, and is yeah, you can have all the solar you want, but you cannot just spool up a power plant to take up that when the solar dies or the wind dies. You need to have those other resources, and until you can store that, I think that's the biggest factor. For solar, for radio and stuff with individuals, fantastic. Houses, if you're willing to invest in a lot of batteries and huge inverters, that's great. But as for a grid system, it's just not quite there yet.
Ralph.
Well, I live in an area where there's a lot roof-mounted solar for houses down here. Unfortunately, there's the people who buy their systems, and there's the people who either lease them or buy them on time. And those all have different advantages. But when they first started putting solar in, it was net metering, which means the utility paid you the same price that you paid when you got power from the utility. Well, there's what they call stranded costs that the utility has. And so they're changing the rules so that the utility pays less for your solar power than at night when you buy it back to use it in the evening. And so that's a problem. But one of the houses in my neighborhood over here has a big Tesla battery pack on the outside of their house. So I have actually seen an installation of the Tesla battery packs. So yeah, it's interesting in that rooftop solar is changing all the time. And again, I want to address as for battery packs, what batteries you're using on your solar systems there that are portable. Back to the group.
Ken makes a good point about the storage. That is very, very, very true. I have my generator at home for the house is a Honeywell, which is basically Generac, but for whatever the reason are, they have to sell it as a Honeywell in Washington State. They have come up with these large battery packs that you can connect to Honeywell or Generac's solar panels, and you can just keep adding them on, basically daisy chaining how many of them you want. And the initial reports from folks on the YouTubes that have used them so far have been, for the most part, positive. And the biggest complaint was, I didn't get enough storage capacity. So instead of buying one or two, maybe they should have got 3 or 4. But Ken's point is well stated, that you've got to have a way to store it if you want to actually power up your whole place for solar and wind and all that kind of stuff.
I just pulled up a site out of curiosity on the different types of panels that are out there. A lot more than I thought. I'll just read them to you. Polycrystalline solar, thin film, PERC, thin bifacial, if I'm saying that right, organic, Perovskite, Perovsky. Am I even close with that?
Perovsky.
Oh, okay. Biohybrid, and on and on and on. And so, years ago, there was like 2 choices.
Yeah.
There was just nothing. So obviously, and I imagine it has to do with cost and efficiency. This is getting better and better all the time. Any thoughts, questions?
Is there any concern with radio frequency interference with these
Yes.
controllers?
Probably.
Has that been a...
These and most RVs from the lot are horrible hash generators. Horrible. And one fellow that I know who's got a Class A, he totally ripped out everything that came from the factory and put in a pure sine wave converter, and he went from an S9 noise level down to S2. So yes, that absolutely is a concern.
Yeah. Yeah, my inverter, if you will, in my fifth wheel I used to have was terrible. I turned my walkie on one day, my handy talkie, and I go, what in the hell is that noise? And I was out in the middle of nowhere, and I had S9. So I started walking around the RV, and I started thinking, holy crap. And I got up by that thing, he couldn't even. So I went in there, I tore it out, did a bunch of research, and replaced that whole thing. It made a huge difference. Ken?
Yeah, inverters are terrible. Yeah, you can get some that are better than others, but I have a vibrating recliner in the living room, and that's where my wireless router sits. And then I got the remote weather station that's over the Wi-Fi. It sits out in a remote building. And if the wife gets in the chair and turns on the heated vibrating, I can't even reach that anymore. I mean, it just blanks out everything. And those are just like little vibrating motors. So anything like an inverter or something like that, it's absolutely horrible. And there's not much you can do about it filtering wise.
Right. Yeah, I know there was, this is a little off subject, but one of the guys at the Red Cross I knew changed his whole house to LED. And he was an amateur operator. And we did a Red Cross net one night and you couldn't even tell who he was. It was terrible. Finally, I had to call him. I says, "What the hell did you do?" And I said, "We can't." He says, "Nothing. Why?" I said, "What have you done to your house since the last net?" "Well, I converted everything to LEDs." I said, "Did you get the really cheap and sleazy ones off Amazon?" "Well, yeah, they're very reasonably priced." I said, "They've destroyed your radio. We cannot hear you. We don't even know it's you. We have no idea." And he gave me a couple colorful metaphors and went through and changed everything over and spent another damn near $800 to get the decent LED lights throughout his house. And it made that much difference. Yep. It was just terrible. Just terrible. Rob?
You have, the solar panels are mostly connected to batteries. So I do have some questions on batteries. I know Bioeno is probably the Maserati of the group, and they're priced as such. And I didn't, and I know a few of you might have the Bioenos, but I've been looking online. I've seen some Li time lithium iron phosphate LiPo batteries. They're a little more reasonably priced than the Bioenos, and they have the battery management systems in them. And I just wondered if anybody was using something other than that top of the price line battery, and how they were holding up, and what their experience was.
Anybody here got an answer to that?
Yeah, but I can't tell you the one I bought.
Ralph, my RVs have the ZAMP solar panels on them, and I use the rechargeable battery that came from ZAMP. They are not lithium ion; they're the AGMs, and so they don't, off gas anywhere near as bad as the good old-fashioned flooded cells. And I've had them in my 12-year-old RV and my 7-year-old RV, and the ZAMP batteries thus far have been working very well, and they're a lot less in price than the Bioenos. I think one of the other popular brands right now that seems to have a good reputation is it Go Power? I'm seeing those in a lot of RVs. I think it's called Go Power.
Is it LiPo?
Yeah, they have the LiPo, and they also have the AGMs.
I've had for several years now. I've got an AGM battery. The first 3 or 4 times I used it with my 7300, it lasted me, 3-4 hours of good work. And now I'm to the point where I took it out, not last weekend, but the weekend before. I did a POTA activation up at Lake Havasu State Park. Yeah, I plugged it into my my radio into my battery, and keyed the mic. The radio shut off on low battery power, low voltage. And what I ended up doing was idling my car and plugging it into my car, and I operated the radio and activated the park, got an activation out of it. But yeah, the battery just, it won't hold that higher voltage for the 7300 to not trip out on, it shuts off and then resets. So I'm looking for a LiPo battery. And I don't know whether I actually want to buy a LiPo battery or if I want to get like what Roland has with the electronic boost for the battery it brings it up to 13.8 volts. So I'm not sure which one I want to spend the money on first. And then, short of sitting there idle in my car while I'm making contacts, my battery's not cutting it anymore. So I'm on the hunt.
Ken,
I personally, if I was looking at something like that, I would like a separate buck and boost in case you got to get a new battery where you could use it in multiple places. And it would basically filter out. So if had a battery go bad, at least you're not buying a whole new system, or you could use it on various systems, maybe a lead acid even, if you had to, just to keep that voltage up for the radio, and then choose your battery separate. I really hate things that are all in one that way. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I've looked at MFJ Mighty Fine Junk has one. They're not cheap. Well, there's nothing in amateur radio that's cheap, cost wise. But yeah, I was looking at getting the boost part out of a buck and boost. And then the one from MFJ has a low voltage shutoff to protect the battery, but it also makes sure that you're getting your 13.8 out. And as opposed to just sitting and idle in my car for 45 minutes to an hour until I make enough contacts to activate the park. And so, but I did get a good activation up at Lake Havasu. So I went to the Hot Air Balloon Festival and occupied some of my time down next to the lake. So,
well, the battery I bought, Ralph, the 4 12-volt 6-amp batteries I bought were from Power Queen, and I found them on Amazon, and then I went backdoor and went to their site and did some research and went to a whole bunch of different ham sites. I'm cheap. I really research before I buy anything, and they just raved about these because they're much more affordable. For an example, I'm just on their site. 12-volt 100 amp hour LiPo is $227, which is quite reasonable compared to a lot of the batteries that are out there. That's 100 amps. And so that's probably what I'm going to eventually go up to. But as soon as I save my pennies. But it's just called Power Queen is the name of the company. And my little 6-amp rigs were, I don't remember now. There was 125 for 4 of them. So do the math, $30 a piece, $29 a piece. That was on a little sale they were running at the time. But they had tremendous reviews. There's always going to be somebody's going to complain about something. There 25 good ones and one say, I didn't like the color. What has that got to do with voltage?
another thing that you should be careful of too when you do buy whatever it is you're going to choose, be careful when you read the specs, because a lot of times they will tell you, we do not recommend charging 2 50 amp batteries. We recommend you buy one 100 amp and charge that, because no matter how close in date they were in manufacturing, there's going to be enough chemical difference between the two that you will not really get the equal charge that you want when you've got multiple batteries being charged by the charge controller.
Or you need a smart controller.
Yeah, even a smart controller. But so read your literature carefully when you're doing your research to make sure you get one that says, yeah, this charge controller doesn't care. So just be careful that you don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, one thing Brian told me with multiple batteries, he said, no, hook them together right off the bat. He says, charge every one of them up to full peak for at least a day, if not 2 days. And then once they're up 13.2, 13.4, 13.6, whatever they peak out at, and then hook them up in parallel and stuff so you can get the 12 volt the cumulative whatever amperage. He says that seems to help with what you were just talking about. But you're always still going to run into risk as he's got 12 cells or something in his setup. And he said, I did it that way in case if I lose a cell, I can just replace one cell.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I was just going to say I've got I've only had them for about 3 months, but they're working well. I think it's Echo Worthy is the brand. It's not a high-end brand, but it's been working well. I've got two 30-amp batteries so that I can be charging one while using the other. And I've also got a down converter so that I can charge either of them off of my 36-volt bike battery.
Are these lipo batteries?
Yeah, they're the LiFePO, yeah.
Lithium iron phosphate batteries?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And they're on Amazon. And I don't know that, I mean, I did a fair amount of comparison shopping, but mostly just through Amazon and reviews. So I haven't done quite the in-depth that Roland has. But these were less than, I think it was about $80 for a 30 amp, 12.8 volt LiFePO battery. They were about the size I was looking for. So that's what I ended up going with. And I can let you know as time goes on how they work. I haven't really done a lot of playing with them yet, so.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate the input because, like I said, I'm being frugal. What can I say? I don't need top of the line, but then again, I don't want to buy something that I have to replace here in a short period of time because it was a piece of junk either. So, I appreciate everybody's comments.
I will call out if you need something that is extra durable. I can definitely speak for Battleborn batteries. They are definitely not cheap, but Battleborn batteries, the reason I say that is because, so I'm in search and rescue and we've got a repeater on top of Bessemer Peak. Last winter, I believe it was offline for about 4 or 5 months, something like that, because it was under, I believe the snow was like 15 feet above the top of the antenna. We have social media posts from a hiking group of people, unbeknownst to them, standing on top of the repeater, on top of the antenna, on top of the pile of snow. And so it was completely dormant. I mean, we had no access to it. It completely lost charge. It was dead. And we were prepared that like, okay, we're going to have to do like a hiking trip up there to go resurrect it, maybe bring some batteries up there to kind of kickstart the lithium batteries up there. And it's however many, I don't know the specifics of the setup, but I know it's Battleborn batteries that are up there. And all of a sudden one day it's like, oh, it's back online. And out of nowhere, it managed to come back online. It's purely solar powered up there. There's nothing up there. It's a peak in the middle of nowhere.
Where's that at?
Bessemer Peak.
Which is?
Out in Middle Fork area.
Okay.
And it covers the Middle Fork really well, and it even gets some reach out to, you can hit Bessemer actually from Duval here. But yeah, it came back online on its own, and it's like, okay. And it's been online throughout the summer, and it's so, yeah, if you need really durable, really rugged, Battleborn is really good, but you pay for it. They are not cheap. Yep. So.
You do get what you paid for, that is for
yes.
sure.
Yeah, there's Power Queen, and I mean, a lot of these batteries are made in China. That's the reality of life. And as long as far as, and I'm not saying one's better than the other one, but just do your research and see what people think about them.
Yeah, and forums like this are some of the best things to do because you're going to get an honest opinion. And but also the online reviews are also good. If I read some review about some electronic device or ham gear or something that everything's a 5-star, I'm immediately suspect. They're all going to have something go sideways on them once or twice, And if you have discovered, like I have, ICOM and Kenwood radios don't like 12 volts. They want at least 12 and a half or more. They do all sorts of weird things. I've seen a finger pop out of my Kenwood in my face going, give me some voltage, Jack. I mean, it hates 12 volts. It doesn't like it. And so that's another consideration if you're going to do a radio go pack with batteries and that kind of stuff, is to make sure that you're going to have a battery that's going to be able to supply the power that your particular radio likes.
And a lot of the LifePo ones they're actually 12.8 volts, and that 12.8 volts is at full discharge. So when you actually have them charged up, they're more at 13 and a half.
That's a good spec to look for, is that exact spec right there.
Yeah, we learned about radio shutdown at field day, what was it, 8 years ago, when we had the big tents up there and stuff, the same place we did before. Brian had brought in Big Brian again, brought in this pallet of, I think there was 10 lead acid batteries, 12-volt lead acid batteries on there, big ones, 10 of them, all set up in parallel. And I mean, it was, we were right at 14 something as best as you could get. And we, of course, we had 5 radios running all day. And all of a sudden my ICOM started shutting down, and I didn't realize I couldn't get out, and it would just recycle, not realizing what ICOM had designed. And I'm going, oh my God, my radio's broken. What's happening? And then he walked over to me, says, I said, I'm really frustrated. My radio keeps resetting. And he says, oh. He went over the meter and tested the output. We're 11.9. He says, I'll be back. Got the Honda generator going that night and charged them up for a couple of hours, and we're back on the air the next day. But so I learned that lesson the hard way, not realizing that it was by design. They'd shut down so they wouldn't destroy themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've read that some radios will they will over amp themselves to make up for the lack of voltage, and they will actually burn things out due to low voltage.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I've also heard of radios that will go into a lower power mode to where they'll restrict their, so instead of getting 50 watts, they'll go down to 25 watts or something to help conserve power.
Mine went down to blank screen.
Yeah, one of the
0 watts.
one of the things that happens when all those kind of things happen is most of your electronic equipment or electric equipment will take an over voltage a lot happier than an under voltage. Something happened on Tolt Hill where I live a few years back, where our voltage dropped down to 102 volts, and the wife was going, what is going on here? The TV's weirding out, my computer's making a racket. And I said, well, yeah, the lights seem a little dim. So I went and looked, and we were at 102 volts. So we shut everything down, called, in my case, I'm serviced by both Puget Sound Energy and Tanner Electric. And we said, what's going on here? And he said, first we've heard about it. And they called me back about 45 minutes later and goes, yeah, we got a problem. And so they went out looking for it. And at the end, probably 8 hours later, they found whatever the cause of the problem was and replaced something. I don't recall what it was, but those under voltage situations can really damage your gear. So if you're going to, especially if you're going to be operating like we've been talking about here with our batteries and stuff, and Roland learned a valuable lesson about his radio. When it gives him the finger and shuts itself off, it's trying to tell him something, so Roland needs to listen, which he never listens to me.
Well, there's reasons. I have to tell you a cute story. When I was about 10 years old, my father, who knew nothing about electrical and nothing, decided to change the circuit breaker for the dryer. So I thought I'd watch him. I said, I was 8, 10 years old. So I'm watching, he's doing that. Never shut off the mains. Took the wire off. Said, well, that should be good. Took a screwdriver, long screwdriver, put it in there and pried on it against the case. And it burnt the screwdriver right off. And went, and he says, well, I mean, so sad. And then about 10 seconds later, go, because it was still shorted.
Oh.
And it blew the transformer on the telephone pole on the
gosh.
street, and which I thought was really cool. It was like the 4th of July. And of course, he's more colorful with his metaphors. And then I loved it because the neighbor came out from down the street. He said, hey, bud, did you lose power? Huh? Did we lose power? I don't know. That cost him, I think that cost him back in the days, I think it was $1,000. And this is probably in 60. So you can imagine what $1,000 was in 1960.
Yeah.
But it took the whole block out.
Oh, jeez.
And the electrician came up and he saw the screwdriver welded to the case. He said, who did this? And I get the hell out of there. I usually get blamed for everything. Not this time. He said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And he said, "No, I'm just trying to save the cost of having an electrician come and change the breaker." And he said, "Well, that was a mistake. That would have been $50." So you learn. That's what got me interested in electronics. This damn near killed my father, but that's okay. He was.
The other thing that we talked about, I told you about my friend changed out his inverter to a pure sine wave. The cheaper inverters will do what's called a modified sine wave. And if y'all remember your basic science, the sine wave is just on its side S. And some of the other ones, they use a square wave, and that generates the hash. And even the modified sine waves will generate the hash because it's not the pure sine waves. So again, you need to make sure that whatever you get for the job you're going to do is going to provide clean power, so it doesn't interfere with a PODA or a SODA or field day, or your CPAP machine or something like that. So again, you got to do your research.
Modified sine wave is also really hard on a lot of devices, and there's a lot of them that straight up won't work. You plug them into a modified, they just don't turn on, or they make really weird noises and will kind of sort of half turn on. It's basically kind of like a brownout. Not a good time.
No.
Ford trucks, I know for a long time, I can't say definitively on the 2324s, but my 22 has a 400 watt inverter on it, and it is basically a square wave. It's horrendous. Yeah. So I can speak to Ford vehicles having garbage inverters.
Well, I saw that on one of my servers where it had this high efficiency power supply. And when the UPS kicked in, it just failed.
Right. Yep.
Because the UPS that I had wasn't a real good one, and it didn't have a sine wave.
Yes.
But some of my older servers with just old-fashioned switching power supplies, they work just fine.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it depends on the power supply, how resilient they are. And so yeah, pure sine wave is what you want to look for.
Yeah.
If you've got something that's really sensitive, pure sine wave.
And if you're doing radio stuff in the field, if you have a place where you're charging your batteries, say the ones that you're not using, having the battery charging area away from the radio transmission area is a good idea.
Yeah, just like having the porta potty too close or too far away with no lights. We discovered that, didn't we?
Yeah, I go to the bathroom by Braille.
Yeah, and one of the things he touched him back, and he had sharp things on the end of it.
Yeah, I chased him away.
Well, I was Howard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so lots of things to consider, but for the convenience and doing the stuff that we like to do, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for those that have not been to field day this last time, please come in June. Set your calendars because you'll see some power system.
Oh, jeez.
What date is it again?
Unbelievable. The last weekend in June.
Last week.
We had
Correction, the fourth Saturday.
Yeah. We had, what was that?
65 kilowatts.
It's a 65 kW generator up there. I mean, it was just
The whole camp was powered from
mind-boggling.
that. And guess what? It was cheaper to run that thing all weekend long than it was for all of us to have our own little individual Hondas and what other brand name generators there are.
Yeah.
Because this thing is so efficient and good, clean power. And the fellow that owns this thing has the right cables and the correct distribution stations.
Yeah.
And he lives to do that kind of stuff. So Roland's right. We're going to be at evac pit above Carnation again this year. We're going to partner up with ISQA again and come up there and do some antenna projects and some operating on the air projects and see how the poor people live in their RVs. And it's just a great time. We had a ball.
I think Mike has stock in Milwaukee, don't you think, Bob?
Yeah, yes, he does.
Yeah, Milwaukee is his brand.
Oh boy, every tool he's got is Milwaukee orange or red, whatever that color is.
Red.
And
Yeah.
the trailers that he have all the storage units and chargers. It's
yeah.
impressive. And he even contacted Milwaukee to say, "Hey, can I be a sponsor for you, or will you sponsor me for the things I do?" And they said, "No, just spend money."
Yeah, we ran that thing all night long,
Yep.
and I thought it was going to be too noisy, and it was like, what do they call that? when you have sound in the background.
White noise.
Yeah, white, it was white noise. Man, I just, you know,
I can relate to
Colin
that.
stayed with me in the trailer, and I don't know about him, but I was out like a light.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was so nice because it wasn't rude at all. It was just nice, and you could get up and you could go someplace and walk to the bathroom and everything like that in the middle of the night. So it was nice to have. He brings up more equipment, and I'm off subject, but
Another thing, when Lynn presented his power pole thing, how many this year? Like
yeah,
last year?
no, just a couple months ago.
And one of the things that he found is Milwaukee and what's the yellow? DeWalt. And a lot of those batteries can be modified to run hand gear. You won't run it for a long time, but if you need to have it for maybe a temporary while you change antennas or power supplies or something, you can run a lot of those. Yeah, your low power stuff.
Yeah, he was telling me the story. He went out, he was looking to buy his lawnmower died. So he says, I'm going to buy a gas lawnmower. I'm going to buy an electric. He says, I don't have a big yard. I don't need to mess with a powered mower. And so he found one of the Milwaukee or whatever what it was.
Was it Echo?
Was it
or Eco Green or whatever they call it?
Yeah, whatever it was, and it didn't work. And the lady sold it to him for some ridiculous thing, and it came with 3 batteries. These batteries are $115 a piece, and he got the whole setup for about $25. So he went back and got online and found out how he could rework those batteries. And then there was also a place online that showed him how you could set them up. They're 48 volts, so you got to do a step down on them. But God, they're like, I forget where they are. They're 48 volts and 26 amps or some ridiculous thing to run a lawnmower blade. And so he went through that whole conversion deal. He's got this set up. That's what's in his little carry box. And he said, and he just got the little charger. You just plug them in like you charge them, and came with a charger too. So we got the whole thing. I thought that would be a cool way to go. I saw the price of the batteries. I don't think so.
Well, and a lot of bike batteries are like that too, where it's like 36 or 48 volts, and they're all designed to do like 500 or 750 watts. So they've got lots of power, but you get a step down and you can use them. Just make sure you don't over amp when you're charging the 12 volts off of them.
Ken.
One thing is everybody needs to remember is when you convert power, you lose energy too.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're bucking and boosting or you're stepping down, you're losing energy. And generally it ends up being in heat or some other form. So, if you can keep with the same power levels, it's probably the best way to go.
But if you have power sources for free at a different voltage, you may still use them when you need them.
Yeah, ham radio operators have generally never been one to turn down free.
Yeah. I remember when I went to electronics school, that was the biggest surprise I had, Ken, was how much components steal. You never think about it. You just think, well, they're there doing a function, not a problem, but it happens to be about 0.7 volts for this or 0.7 volts for that. And when you start adding that stuff together, you say, boy, there's some loss there. So you have to design accordingly.
If you look at the truth story about Apollo 13, the biggest pull off of that whole thing, bringing those astronauts home, was power management. Just because of what they could use and what they could start at what times was the biggest issue. And not the movie, the true documentary. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
Good stuff.
Any questions? Anything?
So if you're down converting, if you're going like from 48 volts to 12 volts, is the losses just a couple of percent due to the inefficiency of the circuitry, or is that like a 75% loss?
No,
it's a small loss.
Very low.
Oh, okay. So it's not really that hard.
If you're designed properly.
Yeah.
Just make sure the step down thing, and they're usually like a solid metal with fins, make sure it's out in the open so that the heat can dissipate.
And so much of our electronic equipment, don't like extreme heat and they don't like extreme cold. So like he just said, when you've got something that's got fins on it and it's doing a job like that continuously, it needs to be available for good airflow. Throw it in a box in the corner with all the spare stuff on top of it, not a good way to go.
It likes cold.
I'm working on it's, you'll
But
kind
you
of see,
need to design properly.
I'm working on a mixer for my daughter-in-law. She's in a band and the mixer just went whoop. So I got it torn apart at home and it was just a power switch. But I was just shocked at the size of the heat sink on the back. It was massive.
Yeah.
And then this toroidal transformer is this big around, that thick, and it's got 7 taps coming off of it.
Oh my goodness.
120 going in, 7 taps coming off of it, and it's heavy. And I got the whole thing, and I said, why is this heat sink so here? And then I run the specs. It's 2,400 watt amplifier too. 2,400 watt amplifier.
Something every good bass player should have, right?
Oh yeah, this is her PA system. And she was saying, I looked at that circuit board and there was no way I could have troubleshot the circuit board because it was all surface mount, but it was the power switch. So now I got to get a power switch. I'm going down to Vetco tomorrow to pick up a power switch. And that's a $4 investment.
Love it.
I don't know how long you've owned these solar panels, but have you seen any loss in power output?
So far, I have not.
3 weeks, I don't know.
And
I hope not.
panels on my RVs, the key to outdoor panels is keep them clean.
Yeah. But keep them clean with the right chemical.
Affirmative.
Huge disavowance on what not to use on those things too, because whatever the coating is over, you can destroy them or cut through it. So they said it's just water. Just use water. Don't even use what's the standard stuff to use in the kitchen?
Dawn.
Dawn. Don't use Dawn. Don't use. They have special things, and they say even with this little cheapie, do not clean it with X.
It should be pure ethanol.
Pure ethanol.
Yeah. 96. Oh, effectively, very poor.
Be dead.
I can personally speak to on my camper. I was noticing that normally it's around 13.2 or something like that. It was down to 12.2. And I went, oh, I wonder what's going on up there. I went up there and I think every beaver in the state of Washington had climbed up on my camper and muddied it up because it was just a mess. So I did like Constantine said, you took a solid drink because when you go up there on the thing, it rocks back and forth, and it just, like Roland said, just wiped it off with wet towels.
Wet towels.
And then I was back up to my 13.
I'm sure it's degradation. It's just going to come. With that. In fact, Ralph probably, I don't know if he knows about this. My brother-in-law lives in Glendale, lived there for 35 years, and we were on vacation there a long time ago. And I said, I don't see any solar panels down here. Why is that? I mean, my God, you're in sun country. And he was an electronics wizard at one of the airplane manufacturers. He says, they burn up in the heat. And I said, wow, that's backwards. But now they've improved them. They don't have that problem anymore. But you go by 100 blocks and see one solar panel. And I thought, this is nuts. Now you go 100 blocks and there's hundreds of solar panels because they've finally gotten to the point to where whatever they use in here can take the direct sunlight.
When you say burn up, you mean like they're absorbing infrared and getting really hot and burning?
I don't know the actual, but they would just destroy themselves in the direct sunlight.
My rollout one gets very hot in bright sunlight.
I think it's a fascinating science.
Oh, yeah.
My little
You
grandson,
can't touch it. It's all.
Yeah.
we went over to the windmills over at Eastern Washington one day, and they used to sell this little thing, and it was just a little windmill. It's all made out of wood and everything, and it's got a little teeny solar panel in it about that big. And he sits there and watches that thing for hours. He just can't compute. And I try and explain to him what the sun does to the panel, then converts it to electricity, and then turns, and he's 7, so he's pretty sharp cookie. And he just goes, how can that do that, Grandpa? I said, that's just the science behind it. And someday, now when I get to play with this thing, maybe it'll become a little more clear. But he thought that was just the coolest. And going back to the wind, I meant to mention that. We talked about that because at the cabin, it gets nuts. During the summer, we can have winds up there 40 mile an hour sustained. That's just the way it's Ellensburg wind, And we thought about that. And my wife, she said, well, I don't mind if you put one up, put power up, but if you're putting a weather station, I don't want it. I said, why? I don't want to know how fast the wind's going. It will depress me. Yeah, when we had our fifth wheel over there, it just would just rock. It was a big fifth wheel. It would just rock in the wind. So that's why we finally built the cabin. And the windows, you can still hear the windows creak when it gets cooking. Because we'll have gusts over there in certain days up 75 miles an hour. It's nuts.
So when we
You don't have to put rocks in your pockets to walk in the wind, do you?
No,
when we got our solar installed on our house about 8 years ago, we had asked them about wind power because we're in North Bend and we get high wind. But what they said is the winds that you get in North Bend are all gusty winds, and for generation, you really want sustained winds where it's the same speed for long periods of time. Gusty winds are actually really bad for generation, and so they typically tend to put them in places where the wind is constant for long periods of time.
my cabin.
Okay, yeah. And so it's, there are places you can use them, but like here in Western Washington, for the most part, our winds tend to be more gusty. And so they don't do a lot of business on this side of the mountains, on the wind side. And I will say that with solar panels, at least with the heavy duty professional ones for houses, ours have not degraded at all. We've had it for 8 years. They said that typically those solar panels last for about 20 years. The inverter that connects it to the grid lasts for about 10 years, is what they said to expect.
That's good to know. We know the science has got to be getting better every day.
Well, and I will say that ours, we spent about $22,000. The state, actually, I guess it's the federal government gave us about a third of that back on the tax incentive. And then Washington State, I don't know if they're still running the green energy generation credit. We used up our full allotment on that, but ours basically paid for itself in 4 years. And so now it's just all just gravy. We're we're just paying less.
Right.
Nice. Kath,
Yeah, I heard an interesting project, and this is more nationwide and not ham related, but for grid infrastructure. But there's an interesting project I just heard about in New Mexico where they're building, speaking of wind power and consistent winds, a wind farm there, but they're using higher towers. These towers are going to be like 1,000 feet high. and the wind is more consistent. But the one thing that they've done, which is very creative, and they got the funding to do it, and they've already started on the infrastructure, is they are running the main power lines to a place that actually needs power, which is Phoenix, and then Phoenix has lines that go to the grid infrastructure of California. So that's some of the things holding back these green projects is you can produce power in certain areas, like New Mexico, and this area has proper wind. Some places don't have proper solar, but where you need the transmission lines to actually get the power to where it needs to go, rather than just producing wind farms in areas that, you can build as many solar panels as you want in Washington State, but it's not going to help much in our winters. I mean, our viable options up here for green, I guess you would call it green energy, are basically hydro and nuclear. There's not much way around that, but if you can transmit power, then maybe there's solutions. But it's just a matter of people waking up. And this was mostly source funded money, not from the government, that finally got through. So it's maybe not government solutions, but maybe people being really creative and actually doing things to accomplish goals.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go over 90 and then you take 82 and head to Yakima, that whole east side of 82 for at least a mile is now all solar panels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was surprised last time I was over there. Just finished building them. That's huge. Huge. Got to be 300, 400 acres at least, if not more.
Yeah, and how much usable daylight do we get during the winter?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, how many consistent wind areas do we have? You know, I mean, it's Germany found that out with solar, and they're grayer than us. You know, and it's like, hey, guess what? We need to burn more coal when the solar power is not there. It's like, woo, you figured that out after you decommission your nuclear plants. Good job, people.
One of the things you talk about is storage, and with yeah, you can put in the wind and the solar. And what that allows you to do, especially in the Northwest, is you can back off on the amount of power that's being generated by the dams. And so the beauty of that is you use as much wind and solar as you can, and that way you back off on the amount of water that you're using for generation, because those can be ramped up and ramped down quickly. And so at least here in the Northwest, you know, they've got the best. They have the ability to have the best of both worlds.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah, solar is never going to be primary here, but it makes a good augment, and it definitely pays for itself. At least it has for us, so.
Well, I
Right
mean, yeah, I mean, you got government grants and stuff on top of that. So yeah, yeah.
Well, we're still earning even after it was paid off 4 years ago. We're still so I would say even without the incentives, we would have reached break even by now.
I'm just being facetious here. If you paid for it out of your pocket 100%, where would you be now? That's just my question.
Oh, we have made more than $20,000 in saved electricity.
How much did the project cost? Curious.
$20,000.
Was that grant money or just
Oh, no. We paid for it out of pocket, and then a year later we got a third back in tax money, and then we also got a paycheck every year from PSE as a green energy producer.
Okay. Yeah. You know, some of these projects, the math doesn't add up, you know, where it's like the taxpayer money. So then it's free.
I mean, yes, the third off was a pure incentive. But it's, like I said, even without the incentive, we would have paid ourselves back by now.
Yeah. Okay. No, I totally agree with Ralph. We got the benefit of having hydro here as long as they don't destroy it. Yeah, you just don't spin up a gas plant or coal plant or anything else to take up that. And that was the problem in the UK and stuff, is they put in on these wind projects and they ended up running their conventional fire plants at higher levels than they were. Just when the wind died, they'd have to pick it up to keep from collapsing the grid. So you need a way to store that energy or ramp up quickly. And that's kind of the thing between, you know, you need to do it sensibly before you decide to take and make everybody get an electric car and everything. You got to have the grid, the infrastructure, and these plans in place before you start going on radical projects. You know, it looks good on paper, it sounds good in politics, but you know, for practical matters, I like my lights on rather than off.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I wish we, Ralph, I wish that Sean could have been here tonight. He could have given us a little more of the science of stuff. And he's got a very interesting knowledge, wide-ranging knowledge base. But again, just sitting around here and talking about things and hearing about the different experiences that you folks have or have not had, and then hearing about your house power and all that kind of stuff has just really been so interesting. And this is a little bit of a deviation from our normal Thursday night Elmer meeting, so we wanted to give it a shot and see what it was going to do. I think we can do another subject at another
Yeah.
time.
This is called self-Elmering.
Yeah.
Room full of Elmers.